Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Hello.
Today we're really digging into a foundational text, Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning.
Such a powerful book.
Absolutely. We'll be looking at excerpts, focusing on his experiences in the concentration camps and how that led to logotherapy.
And our mission, really, is to unpack Frankl's core message, right? How meaning is possible even in extreme suffering.
Exactly. And maybe, more importantly for you listening, how those lessons can apply to finding purpose in your own life, whatever the circumstances.
Yeah, that's the key.
You know, the title itself, Man's Search for Meaning, it just resonates, doesn't it?
It really does.
It makes me think about, well, those times we all question things, look for purpose, and the idea that meaning isn't always just found. Sometimes it's made or recognized.
That's a great way to put it. And you have to wonder why this book struck such a chord.
The sheer numbers are staggering.
Millions sold, translated everywhere. Frankl himself, interestingly, he didn't put down to his own genius. No, he called it a symptom of the misery of our time, that deep hunger people have for meaning. The sales figures just prove how widespread that need is.
That makes sense. And the book structure is really compelling, too.
Oh, definitely. It's got those two distinct parts that work together so well.
First, the raw personal story.
Yeah, his own experience in the camps. Horrifying, but it gives incredible weight, incredible credibility to the second part.
Which is where he lays out logotherapy.
Exactly. The theory. The experience validates the theory, and the theory helps make sense of the experience.
And it's pretty remarkable he initially wanted it published anonymously.
It really says something, doesn't it? His motivation wasn't personal fame at all.
It was more like a duty.
A profound sense of responsibility, I think.
Yeah.
He needed to show, through his own story, that life always holds potential meaning. Always.
Even in the absolute worst conditions.
Especially then. He saw it as a lifeline, really, for anyone facing despair.
Okay, so let's dive into those experiences. That initial shock arriving at the camp. It's hard to fathom.
The book paints such a stark picture, that line. Nothing to lose except his so ridiculously naked life.
Chilling.
And the immediate psychological shifts. Almost like a cold, detached curiosity about your own fate.
A defense mechanism.
Absolutely. That and just this immediate primal focus on figuring out how to survive, even when survival seemed, well, impossible.
Amidst all that horror, what kept people going in those first moments? What were the anchors?
It's amazing, really, the resilience. Frankl highlights these core human things.
Right.
Memories of loved ones held onto so tightly for some, deep religious faith, even finding moments of dark humor.
Humor rally.
Yeah, sort of gallows humor. And surprisingly, finding beauty in nature. A sunset, a tree, small things that somehow cut through the horror.
But that constant threat, the selections.
Ever present. The selections for transport, usually to the gas chambers, created this brutal free fight.
This pure survival instinct kicking in.
Exactly. Survival at almost any cost.
Yeah.
Which led to Frankl's observation that often the best of us did not return.
Meaning the most ruthless survived.
Or perhaps those less burdened by moral scruples. It highlights the terrible compromises survival sometimes demanded.
It's almost impossible for us to truly grasp that. And he mentioned survivors finding it hard to talk about it later.
Yeah, a deep feeling that anyone who wasn't there simply couldn't understand. An unbridgeable gap.
Like words just fail.
Precisely. How could they convey that reality?
And the systematic stripping away of identity, becoming a number.
Just devastating. Frankl was number 119,104. It reduces you, makes you part of an undifferentiated mass.
He talks about doing manual labor just like everyone else.
Laying railway tracks, digging tunnels. He wasn't special in that context, just another prisoner struggling to exist.
So Frankl breaks down the psychological reactions into three phases. Let's start with that first one. Shock.
Right, the shock phase. Arrival. The sensory overload is palpable in his writing.
What stands out?
The shouting, the chaos, seeing these privileged prisoners who looked relatively well-fed, maybe sparking a flicker of false hope.
Which was quickly extinguished.
Brutally. The moment they realized what sent to the left meant, the chimney, the blunt explanation of the gas chambers, Frankl said he basically struck out his entire former life right then and there.
It's gone.
Wiped clean in an instant.
And the physical process of dehumanization continued immediately.
Oh, yes. Being forced to strip naked, shaved everywhere, herded into showers. He even mentions the strange relief some felt at feeling actual water.
Amidst the terror.
But always, always the shadow of death. That phrase, running into the wire.
Suicide on the electric fence.
Yeah. And the paradox that, in that initial shock, even the gas chambers could seem less horrifying than actively choosing that wire.
And there was this grim, practical advice passed around.
Crucial advice for survival. An older prisoner told Frankl, shave daily, look fit for work. It was the only way to maybe avoid selection.
And he learned the meaning of that awful term.
Muslim. Yes. Someone looking emaciated, weak, marked for death. Frankl himself was warned directly about his appearance.
It sounds like an assault on every level of your being. The emotions must have been unbearable.
Completely overwhelming, but had to be suppressed. Intense longing for home, for family, utter disgust at the filth.
And being punished for normal reactions.
Yes, like the mortification of being beaten for showing revulsion while cleaning latrines. It trained you to numb yourself.
And seeing death constantly.
It became commonplace, lost its impact. He describes seeing a corpse dragged away so casually. It's chilling how quickly that desensitization happened.
So moving into that second phase, entrenchment, how did people cope day after day?
Apathy became the main armor, a necessary dulling of emotions just to survive.
He talks about the beatings.
Constant, arbitrary beatings. Getting hit for not standing right or just because a guard felt like throwing a stone. Frankl said the physical pain was often less than the sheer injustice, the unreasonableness of it all.
And the isolation, even among fellow prisoners.
The system actively discouraged camaraderie. He tells that story about trying to help his friend with a heavy girder.
And getting yelled at for it.
Exactly. A reminder that basic human kindness was a liability, often punished. Survival meant focusing inward.
Yet, you mentioned small moments of defiance.
Yes, tiny sparks. Like Frankl when insulted by a capo blurting out, "I am doctor."
Asserting his identity.
A flicker of his former self. He even felt a strange relief at the capo's crude response. It was almost normal in a twisted way.
And even in that hell, hierarchy is formed. Favors matter.
Hugely. Connections could be life-saving. Like the capo who liked Frankl's medical advice and saved him a spot in the front rows for work details.
Avoiding the worst tasks.
Exactly. Being in the back rows often meant dangerous or disgusting jobs. A small favor could literally mean survival.
The physical hardship combined with the mental strain. It's relentless.
And the foreman constantly belittling their work, comparing them to real laborers.
Ignoring the starvation, the stress, the threat of death.
Right. Frankl's sarcastic retort about brain surgery being maybe a bit different. It just highlights the absurdity.
So apathy was the main shield.
The primary defense. Just get through the day. That weary sigh, another day is over. Summed it up. Focus all energy on just existing.
And that must have affected their inner lives profoundly.
Absolutely. A regression to a more primitive level. Basic needs dominated. Even small things like shrunken shoes could trigger huge emotional breakdowns, even in the bravest.
He called it a cultural hibernation.
Yeah, the intellectual and emotional life just shut down under constant pressure.
Were there any exceptions?
Yeah.
Any outlets?
Two main ones, he notes. Politics, meaning the constant stream of rumors. Hopeful, despairing, they had a huge psychological impact.
And the other.
Religion. A surprisingly deep and sincere religious feeling emerged for many. Secret prayers, improvised services, offering some kind of solace or meaning.
And then came the typhus outbreak, adding disease to everything else.
Horrific conditions in the sickbay, just unimaginable. Yet even there, Frankl fought to stay awake, trying to reconstruct his lost manuscript in his head.
That sheer will to meaning. Incredible.
It really is. And even amidst the sickness, sometimes you'd get these flickers, a scientific debate. He even mentions a seance once.
A seance?
Yeah, which he, as a psychiatrist, naturally tried to analyze psychologically. It just shows how the mind kept searching, even then.
It's incredible to hear about these moments of resilience. But the core of his message is finding meaning within the suffering itself. How did that work?
For Frankl, the idea of love became absolutely central, the ultimate goal.
The salvation of man is through love and in love.
Exactly that quote. He describes vividly thinking of his wife during those brutal marches.
Almost like she was there.
More real, he said, than the sunrise. Their mental conversations, feeling her presence. It gave him immense strength. He quotes the Song of Solomon, "Love is as strong as death."
So powerful. But it wasn't only romantic love, right?
No, definitely not. He talks about finding meaning in other ways, too. That moment working in the frozen trench.
Finding that victorious yes.
Yes. Despite everything, affirming life's purpose. Seeing a light from a distant farmhouse that it looks in tenebris lucet. The light shines in darkness. A profound inner moment.
And he mentions art and humor.
Absolutely. Even the sound of a distant tango could offer a brief respite, a connection to beauty. And humor, he called it a weapon of the soul.
A way to detach.
To gain a little distance, preserve the self. He tried to teach his friend to find humor in their situation, telling that action, anecdote, finding absurdity even in the horror.
And his point about the relativity of suffering.
Crucial. Suffering, he realized, fills the soul completely, regardless of its objective size.
So small comforts become huge.
Exactly. Being grateful for delousing, for an air raid alarm that meant a break, moments of negative happiness, he called them, even positive moments like a cook distributing soup fairly, were deeply meaningful.
But the sheer focus on survival must have warped their values.
Inevitably, anything not related to staying alive lost its importance. That led to inner turmoil, loss of self-respect, feeling like cattle, like objects.
Yet, you mentioned small acts of defiance.
Holding on to humanity, like Frankl hiding those fellow prisoners. Tiny acts that reaffirmed their worth against the system.
That story about the transport of the sick is just chilling. The disregard for life.
The list being more important than the people. Throwing dead bodies on the cart just to make the numbers match. It's the ultimate devaluation.
And exchanging numbers to save someone.
Desperate, tragic acts in an absurd system.
Frankl seemed very aware of fate, of randomness, in small moments.
Constantly, knowing that any small event could change everything. His name appearing on that rest camp list. The false alarms. The volunteers for the night shift thinking they were choosing the lesser evil.
It's pure chance.
So much of it was. Even making his will, saying goodbye to his friend Otto, death felt constantly imminent.
And the irony of those who pitied him for staying behind.
Unbelievable. They pitied him, but they ended up facing cannibalism in the old camp. Frankl's transport went elsewhere. It perfectly illustrates that death in Tehran parable he uses. You can't outrun fate.
He had a chance to escape, though, didn't he? And chose not to.
He did, a real chance. But he decided to stay with his patients. And he describes this incredible inward peace after making that choice.
A sense of purpose in that decision.
Absolutely. Even later, on the very last day, planning another escape. It got delayed by chance, by finding a forgotten body, and they ended up being liberated on the very last truck.
While the second-to-last truck
met a horrific fate. Burned alive in another camp. Again, that terrifying randomness, death in Tehran playing out again.
Beyond the immediate horrors, he looked at the deeper causes of that apathy he saw everywhere.
Yes, it wasn't just a psychological defense. It was the chronic hunger, the lack of sleep, the vermin, the withdrawal from nicotine, caffeine.
Basic physical deprivation.
Which led to extreme irritability, potential for violence. It ground people down physically and mentally.
But despite all of that, Frankl insists on human freedom.
This is absolutely central. He argues fiercely against determinism, the idea that we're just products of our conditions.
Even in a concentration camp.
Especially there. He saw it proven. There's always an inner space, a spiritual freedom, to choose your attitude towards your circumstances.
Well, and the prisoners made those choices daily.
Hourly, even. To give in, or to hold on to some inner dignity. He believed the kind of person you became in the camp was ultimately down to an inner decision, not just the external pressures.
He quotes Dostoevsky.
There is only one thing that I dread, not to be worthy of my sufferings. That sums it up.
And he saw examples of people living that.
Vivid examples. People who bore immense suffering with incredible dignity, proving that last inner freedom can't be taken away. The young invalid finding meaning in facing death bravely.
And that story of the young woman in the tree.
So moving. Finding her only friend in a tree, finding meaning in her suffering through that connection. Seeing the tree as saying, I am life, eternal life. It's about finding meaning where you can.
Frankl practiced this himself, didn't he? Mentally detaching.
Yes, forcing his thoughts away from the immediate misery to objectively analyze the psychology of the camp, even giving an imaginary lecture.
Like Spinoza said.
Suffering ceases to be suffering once you form a clear picture of it. Finding meaning through understanding, through detachment.
But hope was fragile. The story of the warden who predicted liberation.
Philodo, yes. He dreamt liberation would come by a certain date. When it didn't, he lost hope, got sick, and died almost immediately. It showed the powerful link between hope, courage, and the body's immune system.
And the death rate spiked around Christmas.
Because hope was so high and then dashed, it literally killed people.
Which led Frankl to this fundamental shift.
Stop asking what life owes us. Start asking what life expects from us.
Taking responsibility.
To find the right answers, to fulfill the tasks life sets before us, whatever they are.
Okay, that's a perfect bridge to logotherapy itself. What's the core idea?
Logos means meaning. So logotherapy is therapy focused on meaning. Frankl called it the third Viennese school after Freud and Adler.
And its central tenet.
The will to meaning. He believed our primary drive as humans isn't pleasure like Freud or power like Adler, but the search for meaning in our lives.
And he found evidence for this.
He cites polls showing most people feel they need something to live for, and many could name something they'd even die for. It suggests this drive is pretty fundamental.
What happens when that will to meaning gets blocked? Existential frustration.
Exactly. And that can lead to noogenic neuroses, problems arising from this spiritual or meaning dimension.
But not all suffering is neurotic in his view.
No, definitely not. Sometimes suffering, faced correctly, is an achievement, finding meaning in it.
Like his own determination to rewrite his manuscript after it was taken.
A perfect example. That goal, that meaning, literally helped keep him alive. Scribbling notes, even while sick with typhus, that's the will to meaning in action.
Logotherapy also challenges the idea that mental health is just about balance or equilibrium.
Oh, right. Frankl argued that a certain amount of tension is healthy. The tension between who you are and who you could be, what you've done, and what you still need to do.
No dynamics.
Yes. Striving towards a goal is vital. He thought seeking a tensionless state was actually detrimental.
And that feeling of meaninglessness, the existential vacuum, he saw that as a big problem.
A huge modern problem. He felt that as old traditions and instincts faded, people lost their bearings, didn't know what they should be doing.
Leading to
Conformity, just doing what others do, or falling for totalitarianism, which offers a false sense of purpose.
How does this vacuum show up in everyday life?
Boredom is a big one. That Sunday neurosis, feeling empty when the workweek structure disappears. He also saw it underlying depression, aggression, addiction, people trying to fill the void, retirement crises too.
So how do we find meaning, according to logotherapy?
He outlines 3 main ways. 1, creating work or doing a deed, making a contribution.
Okay.
2, experiencing something or encountering someone, especially finding meaning through loving another person.
And the third?
The attitude we take toward unavoidable suffering. This was key to his camp experience, obviously.
Let's talk more about love. It was so central for him personally.
He saw love as the only way to truly grasp another person's deepest essence, to see their potential.
And help them achieve it.
Yes. By loving them, you empower them to become their best selves.
And finding meaning in suffering. How does that work if suffering isn't the goal?
It's about the attitude. When faced with something you can't change, like a terminal illness or the camps, meaning comes from how you bear it. Transforming tragedy into a personal triumph. Bearing witness to human potential.
Like the story of the grieving doctor.
A perfect illustration. Frankl helped him see his survival not as pointless suffering, but as a sacrifice that spared his wife the pain of grieving him. His suffering gained meaning.
But to be clear, logotherapy isn't seeking suffering.
Absolutely not. If you can change a bad situation, you have a responsibility to do so. Unnecessary suffering is just masochism.
He worried about some modern ideas minimizing unavoidable suffering.
Yeah, the idea that any unhappiness means you're maladjusted. That adds guilt to necessary pain. Logotherapy allows for pride, for dignity, and facing what you can't change. Life's meaning is unconditional, even including suffering.
That story about finding the Hebrew prayer page in the dead man's coat pocket, that must have felt incredibly significant.
Profoundly. He saw it as a direct sign, a challenge to not just think his ideas, but to live them. Right there, in that place.
Logotherapy also uses specific techniques, right? Beyond just talking.
Yes, it tackles what he called metaclinical problems, the big existential questions, not just symptoms.
Can you give an example? The logodrama.
That's a powerful one. The mother who'd lost a son and tried suicide. Frankl guided her to imagine her life from her deathbed.
To gain perspective.
Exactly. She realized the deep meaning in caring for her other disabled son. It showed her that even a difficult life could be incredibly meaningful.
What about the super meaning concept? That sounds quite abstract.
It is, a bit. It's the idea that there might be an ultimate meaning to life that's simply beyond our human ability to fully grasp intellectually.
So we shouldn't expect to understand everything.
Right. The demand isn't to fight meaninglessness, but maybe to accept that we can't fully comprehend life's ultimate unconditional meaning through reason alone.
Like his daughter asking about God sending measles.
Exactly. Simple examples showing the limits of our understanding. Or the rabbi despairing about not dying with his children. Frankl suggested maybe his survival, his suffering, was his meaning, a kind of purification.
Logotherapy also has this interesting view of the past.
The full granaries of the past. A beautiful idea. Everything we've experienced, done, suffered, it's stored, it can't be taken away.
Having been is the surest kind of being.
That's the quote. It makes logotherapy inherently optimistic, activistic. You're not losing things to time. You're accumulating realities in your past. No need to envy youth. The past holds treasures.
A paradoxical intention. That sounds counterintuitive.
It is deliberately trying to do the thing you fear.
How does that work?
He gives examples. The doctor, afraid of sweating, told to try to sweat profusely. The bookkeeper with writer's cramp, told to try to write as badly as possible.
And it worked.
Often, yes. By intending the symptom, you break the cycle of fear and anticipatory anxiety that fuels it. Like the stutterer who couldn't stutter when he tried to show Frankl how bad it was.
Okay, let's bring it back to freedom and responsibility. These seem absolutely crucial for Frankl.
Foundational. He hated that nothing butness, thinking that we're just products of biology or environment.
Because it leads to fatalism.
Neurotic fatalism, yes. Feeling powerless. Frankl insisted freedom isn't freedom from conditions, but freedom to take a stand towards them, to choose your response.
And the camps proved that capacity.
For him, absolutely, that inner defiance, that choice was always possible.
And this freedom means we're responsible.
Always. We can change at any moment. We're unpredictable. We can rise above conditions. He mentions Dr. J, the mass murderer,
who later showed great compassion in a POW camp.
Exactly. People can change. Potential is always there.
He even applied this to severe mental illness.
His psychiatric credo. Even in psychosis, a core of freedom remains. The person is still there, still has dignity. He argued against euthanasia precisely because the person is more than just a damaged machine.
He wanted to humanize psychiatry.
Seeing the person behind the illness. Ultimately, we're self-determining within our limits. The camps showed the extremes, both swine and saints emerged, based on decisions, not just conditions.
Which leads us finally to tragic optimism. What is that exactly?
It's not naive optimism. It's optimism despite the tragic realities of life. Pain, guilt, death. It's maintaining meaning even when things are terrible.
How?
3 ways. Turning suffering into an achievement. Using guilt as a chance to change for the better. And seeing life's shortness, its transitoriness, as a reason for responsible action now.
But it's not about forcing yourself to be positive.
No, you can't command optimism or love or faith. They have to arise from a reason. He disliked the American pressure to just be happy.
Happiness is a byproduct.
Usually, yes. A byproduct of finding meaning. Like laughter, you need a joke, a reason. You can't just decide to laugh genuinely.
And trying too hard for happiness can backfire. Hyperintention.
Exactly. Like in sexual neurosis, focusing too hard on pleasure ruins it. Orienting towards meaning is more likely to lead to fulfillment and the ability to handle suffering.
Meaninglessness.
Can be fatal. Give up itis in camps, refusing to engage, addiction, trying to fill that existential vacuum destructively, the no future feeling.
But logotherapy offers hope, even to the suicidal.
Yes, by helping them see life still expects something, that meaning can still be found. Emphasizing their responsibility to keep searching. He noted even aggression decreases when people find a shared purpose.
And the focus is on meaning in the moment, not just some grand life plan.
Very much so. Like a movie, each scene matters, contributes to the whole. The final meaning depends on finding the potential meaning in each situation along the way.
How do we perceive that meaning? Is it mystical?
No, quite down to earth, he said. Like an aha moment or seeing a pattern, gestalt. Becoming aware of a possibility for action against the background of reality. What can be done here?
We can learn from others, from our conscience.
Yes, study lives of meaning. Listen to conscience, that biological a priori, guiding us towards evolved values, and attitudinal heroism, choosing your stance when suffering is unavoidable, like in the Warsaw Ghetto.
He also addressed crime, didn't he? Rejecting simple explanations.
The mysterium iniquitatis, the mystery of evil. Crime isn't fully reducible to biology or sociology. There's free will, responsibility. Even criminals often prefer to be held responsible. But he rejected collective guilt entirely.
And transitoriness comes back again at the end.
As motivation. Life is short, so make the most of each moment. Live as if you were living for the second time and had acted as wrongly the first time.
Powerful stuff. Don't confuse dignity with mere usefulness.
That's nihilism talking, he'd say. Learned meaninglessness.
And logotherapy itself isn't a dogma.
No, he wanted degurification, independent thinking. He even challenged Frankl directly on the effects of hunger, saying in the camps, people became more different, revealing both the beast and the saint. like Father Maximilian Kolbe.
What an incredible journey through this book. A truly profound deep dive into Frankl's life and logotherapy.
It really is.
So, just to recap the big ideas, that fundamental will to meaning, the power of love, choosing our attitude towards suffering, tragic optimism, and that enduring core of human freedom and responsibility.
Yeah, even in the face of, well, anything life throws at us.
I think maybe a key takeaway for you listening is that meaning isn't necessarily some huge hidden thing.
Right. It can be found or made in the everyday, in small acts, in connections.
And especially in how we choose to respond when things get tough.
Yeah.
That inner freedom to choose our attitude, Frankl shows us that's always there. It's our ultimate power, really.
Absolutely.
So, thinking about those granaries of the past, Frankl talks about, what kind of diary notes are you writing with your actions right now? How might knowing life is transitory fuel more meaning in your present?
Good questions to ponder.
We really encourage you to reflect on your own sources of meaning, how Frankl's ideas might resonate with your own life. Maybe even pick up Man's Search for Meaning yourself, or explore logotherapy further.
It's definitely worth it.
Thank you so much for joining us today on The Deep Dive.